Hey, everybody, Guy here from Chit Chat. Thanks for continuing to listen. Just got done recording a really fun podcast with Leslie Hanlon. Leslie is the executive director for the Central Minnesota Arts Board. If you live in Central Minnesota and you have listened to somebody do something creative and artistic, if you have watched and if you've consumed art in some capacity in our community, there's a decent chance that you have interacted with Leslie's team and the funds that her and her organization help administer. And so as you guys all know, I love art, I love creative expression, and I'm thankful that people in our community make stuff. And I think that it's such an important part about being a human is figuring out ways that you can help create and build stuff. And so many of the people we talk to, I mean, the things that they're building are businesses, or, they're helping run nonprofits, and a lot of them are artists too. But there's something in us as humans that cares about creation, about building something. And Leslie and her team get to be a part of that from an artistic perspective. And I just really love that. And so I'm excited for you guys to learn a little bit more about the Central Minnesota Arts Board and maybe how you can be involved. Thanks for listening, everybody. Leslie, thank you so much for coming to join us on the podcast. Our past podcast guest, Susan Dean, who is just an incredible human being. I think she is who recommended that you and I meet and talk, and that you should come on the podcast. So thanks for coming on. And Susan, avid listener, thank you for the recommendation. Leslie, would you just maybe introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. My name's Leslie Hanlon. I'm the executive director for the Central Minnesota Arts Board. I've been with the organization now for about 2.5 years, and I just recently transitioned into the executive director role.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I spent 16 years working at the St. Ben's and St. John's Fine Art Series. Mm-hmm. And I've been in Central Minnesota now since 2005. My family relocated in 2005, so I think I'm starting to be here long enough to be considered a local.
Yeah, that's great. Would you maybe just help us understand a little bit better about what the Art Board does? What kind of work are you guys involved in, and in what kind of ways do you support the arts in Central Minnesota?
Absolutely. So not everybody knows that Minnesota has a unique funding structure for arts funding in our state. There's not another state like us in the country.
That's interesting.
Yep, it's fascinating and powerful. So the Minnesota State Arts Board is our state agency, and they do a lot of grant making in the state. But unlike every other state, we have 11 regional arts councils throughout the state. And the smaller regional arts councils work in tandem with the State Arts Board, and we support Benton, Stearns, Sherburne, and Wright County. And every regional arts council supports a number of Minnesota counties, and it makes sure that funding gets to all 86 counties in Minnesota, and it doesn't stay concentrated in the metro, which, of course, some of our biggest organizations are in the metro, and a large amount of funding goes to the metro. But our system ensures that public dollars
outstate
go to outstate and support small regional orchestras, community theaters, mural projects, right? All across the state. And there's not another state like us. So we're the envy. So when we go to conferences and people hear we're from Minnesota, they immediately say, oh, with the funding.
With the funding. Oh, that's sweet.
Because we also, not only do we have the Regional Arts Council system, which is amazing in its own right, we also have the legacy funding, right? So in 2008, you might want to double check, fact check me there. We passed the Legacy Amendment, and that dedicated funding for clean water, parks and trails, our natural habitat, and arts and culture. So 3/8 of 1% of sales tax gets paid into the Legacy Amendment, and then is sent out to those 4 priority areas. And so we have a stream of funding that other states just don't have.
Fascinating. And so in Central Minnesota, was it 4 counties?
Yep, 4 counties for us.
In our 4 counties, where are some of the places that these funds end up? Like, how have maybe our listeners or people that are interested, like how have they maybe engaged with or experienced some of that funding? And
Sure. If you look all the way across our region, we see up in Sauk Center, there's the 510 Art Lab that didn't exist before, right? Before legacy funding. And they're doing incredible things up in Sauk Center at that organization. Melrose has an arts council that's incredibly active and doing a number of projects in their community, from welcome signs into Melrose to murals to artists at the farmers market who are doing hands-on demonstrations for kids, right? Monticello has completely artified. Monticello is kind of a poster child. And Buffalo has a strong and thriving community theater, community orchestra, and arts guild. Delano now has a sculpture walk and hosts a jazz fest in conjunction with their sculpture walk festival every summer. So we see it all across our region.
that's really, really fun. That's cool. And if there are people that are interested in like being funded or, gaining access to some of that, like what does the process look like for artists to, tap into that?
Sure. So we have 12 grant programs. Some of them are for individual artists and others are for organizations only, right? And so we have, and so our funding is, we also receive funding, and this is important for me to note, we also receive funding from the McKnight Foundation. And the McKnight Foundation primarily supports our individual artists. So almost all of that funding goes directly to individual artists. So we have an arts learning grant, which is a small grant that's, for a learning opportunity. So if you wanted to take, go to a conference or work with a mentor to further your skills, we have a $500 grant for that. We have an artist career development grant that's $4,000. So if you were doing something larger in scope, we've had a composer working on, a ballet, right? The music in partnership with a choreographer for a new ballet. We've had artists who build studios with their, 4,000, right? So it's very flexible in that way. And then we have a host of organizational grants from operating support grants, which, if you know anything about nonprofits, that's the holy grail of grant funding. We have project grants, we have organizational development grants. So on our website, we have all of our grant programs listed with guidelines, which really help individuals assess, right, is this the right program for me? And we have a small team. There's only 4 of us, but we are all incredibly receptive to, we want to talk to folks. We want to help folks pick the right grant program for their project. We consider ourselves advocates for our applicants, and so we're very approachable and want to work with folks.
That's really cool. Why is art important in a community? Why should people care about supporting and getting behind artists and the arts?
Sure. So from my perspective, the arts are the heart of our communities, right? One of the frequent justifications for the arts is that they are economic drivers, right? And that's true. I always am a little unsettled talking about them as economic drivers because to me it reduces the arts to a capitalist sort of in a capitalist sort of way. And I think the arts transcend that, right? But it's very true, right? So the arts do generate economy. In Minnesota, the arts actually generate $1 billion in economic activity across the entire state. So it's very true that arts are an economic driver, but they also connect us, right? There are lots of examples of people finding their voice in their arts activities, developing confidence, right? And in health and wellness, you see examples of the arts helping people heal. We have the Annandale Art and Textile Center down in Annandale, which employs disabled folks from our region and teaches them how to weave. And if you ever visit, it's a magical experience. The gentleman who sits up by the front door, when he started working for them, he had very few words. And now he wanted to move up by the front door so that he could greet everybody and give everybody an example of what he's working on and tell them how his loom works, right? Yeah. And they suspect that it is the cross-body motion of weaving, right? That is helping build his language skills.
That's cool.
Right? And so examples like that litter throughout the arts, right? Like you hear, if you're in the arts for a long time, you hear over and over that the arts transform lives. And if you've been in the arts for a long time, you can become a little bit jaded to that, like, yes, we've heard, right? But when you're in the room, when the magic happens, right, the truth of that statement becomes so real for you, right? And so for me, that is why it should matter for our communities, right? The arts tell our stories, right? And they're a shared space. They're a collective space where we can explore hard things, where we can find collective joy, right? They're a unifying experience in our communities.
Yeah, I grew up, I sang in a boys' choir when I was, starting, I think when I was, 9 or 10 years old, something like that. And I fell in love with music and singing, and then subsequently that gave me access to all these other kinds of artistic expression. And then through high school, I did theater and band, and I did all these other things. And I think that really truly my life was shaped in so many ways by the arts and some of the opportunities that art kind of provided. And so I think it's especially for young people, I mean for everybody, but for young people, as brains are being formed, and your perception of the world and your understanding are developing, art and that kind of creative expression are really, really important facet of that development. And it's a really exciting, really fun aspect of being a human being, is
right, creating
and making and seeing how that thing that you put out into the world, how people respond to it, good and bad. And some valuable lessons as a kid were like standing on a theater stage, or singing a quartet or something, and it doesn't go well. Like something didn't go well. Maybe you've hung a painting on a wall and you hear someone comment negatively about that thing. Even those kinds of experience where you have to kind of put yourself out there a little bit and deal with some of like maybe even that negative response to it. Those are really growing, really stretching things that if you don't do that, if you don't engage in that kind of thing, how do you grow and develop those things and become good, well-rounded human beings if you're not putting yourself out there in those kinds of ways?
It teaches resilience, right? Listening in theater and music. Boy, do you have to listen, right?
Even in painting and visual things, there's a kind of listening, right? Like, even if it's like listening with your eyes, where like you need to take in if you're going to have any sort of output that's productive or meaningful.
Right. Absolutely. Right. And when you are talking about the visual arts community, there, critiques are so, organized critiques for the visual arts community are so fundamental because of that, what you're talking about exactly, right? Being able to receive and then decide for yourself, like,
is it merited?
Right. Right. Am I going to adjust based on what I'm taking in, or do I really believe that as is the appropriate way, right? Yep. But even that is an incredible skill to learn, to be able to receive critique and then assess for yourself.
Know what's valid and know what you need to avoid.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've maybe even said it here on the podcast before, but the first, before a 4-minute mile was ever run, everyone thought that it was impossible. Like the human body isn't capable of actually, like the mechanics of the human body will never allow for someone to run a mile in less than 4 minutes. But I think Bannister, I think that the guy's name was Bannister, who did that for the first time, who broke 4 minutes. Everyone told him it's not possible, but thankfully he didn't listen, right? Like,
Right.
so there's a time when listening to feedback, listening to critique is important. If there are artists, in this regard, if there are artists that you really respect their opinion, if they give you thoughtful,
Right.
valuable critique, hey, why don't you think about exploring this? As a young artist, that's a really good thing to do. But there is a kind of feedback, like someone telling, Bannister, that you cannot run a mile in less than 4 miles or 4 minutes. It's really good to ignore some of that and say, like, I just need to push on here. I don't know why I know that, or I don't know how I know that, but I'm going to push on here. And again, that's a valuable
Yeah.
aspect of that feedback experience. What do I listen to, and what do I ignore?
Right.
Story is the driving force for us here at Switchboard. Story is also the reason that Chit Chat exists. We tell stories of the people around us through photos, videos, branding, and websites. Story helps us find meaning, and it draws a community together, and we would love to help tell your story. You can find us at www.switchboard.mn. We would love to meet you. We'd love to talk with you and learn more about the story that you are trying to tell and how our story-driven marketing tools can help you communicate better. Can't wait to talk to you soon.
So as in your role as the executive director, and you've already referenced so many of these different kind of neat organizations, and do you spend a lot of time on the road, like going and seeing these different places and checking in on people? Like, what does your kind of day-to-day look like?
My day-to-day is not so much on the road. We work remote, actually, 4 out of 5 days a week. So I'm in my office and in my home 4 out of 5 days. But we talk to folks a lot, and we do go out into the community, especially when we have new grantees. Like, we really want to build relationships with new grantees and establish that, we're human and we're here to help, right? So don't be intimidated. And as your grant project is evolving, if there are things that you need to talk to us about, pick up the phone, right?
Yep.
So we do spend time on the road. We try to meet with folks one-on-one as much as we can. Post-COVID, I think that personal relationship building is so important.
Yeah.
But we spend a lot of time administering our programs, right?
Sure.
And so it does take a lot for a staff of only 4 to make 4 programs function well, or 12 programs function well.
Cool. That's great. If people have never heard about the Central Minnesota Arts Board, and they're just learning now, like what's the one main thing that you want people to know and understand about your organization?
That we are here to fund activities, and it doesn't have to just be for an arts organization, right? So if you're not, the vast majority of our grants do go to nonprofits or individual artists. But if you are a community group and you have a fiscal sponsor, so if a nonprofit in the region says, we like what you're doing and it fits mission-wise with what we do, they can serve as a fiscal sponsor for you, which means that we would cut the check to that fiscal sponsor, and then that fiscal sponsor would work with that group to put into place however they wanted to, distribute that the funding. But that group would implement the project, right? So you don't have to be just an arts organization. You can be a nonprofit. WCOSA comes to us for a number of grant ideas, and we've done beautiful projects with WCOSA, right?
Like art installations, or like what kinds of things?
So one of the frequent activities that WCOSA comes to us for, they work with Dan Monlock, who's a local painter.
Wonderful.
Yep, fabulous. And he works with groups at WCOSA to build these beautiful murals. So he spends X number of weeks doing painting classes with some of their clients. And then at the end, he takes those paintings and constructs a mural out of them that then they get to keep and display, right? And Anna Marie's Alliance did a workshop with Laura Ruprecht, who has also been on the podcast,
Yeah.
right?
Laura's awesome.
And she worked with a number of the people at Anna Marie's at that time and built mosaics that then transformed the entryway coming into Anna Marie's, right? And so art doesn't need to stay in arts organizations, right? Art can be in any of our nonprofits, everywhere. It should be.
Shouldn't stay just in arts
Right.
organizations.
Yep. And so that would be one of the big takeaways for me is that
That's cool. That's
you
a great
don't have
takeaway.
to be an arts organization to come to us with a great idea.
Yeah.
Right?
Every once in a while we'll see, there's a new sculpture or something in town. Do you guys play a role in some of those kinds of things, like some of the different little installations and stuff? Are
Yep.
you involved in some of that?
We do have a public art grant. We have one round of public art. And so I can't say that we're involved in every, right? But yes, absolutely. And if you look, and we have on our website a map with pins of where the public art that we've funded can be found across the region.
Yeah.
And it's quite a few. There are quite a few.
Yeah.
Yep. All across the region.
In St. Cloud, could you, what are a couple of the ones that are in St. Cloud that we would maybe recognize?
Right across from the Paramount by the old Mahold insurance building, that the mosaic sculpture there was funded in part by the Central Minnesota Arts Board.
And who was the artist that did that?
You're predating my...
Okay.
You're predating me.
No problem.
Down across by the VFW, there's it's behind which law firm is...
Quinlivan and Hughes.
Yes. Right behind there's...
On Division, like just off of Division.
Off Division. Yep, we funded, helped fund that. There were some road poetry, sidewalk poetry in St. Cloud that we helped fund. Yep.
Our other building over on Cooper, there's that big neighborhood kind of in between Division and 3rd Street North. So our company's called Switchboard, and we every once in a while we'll do these little we call them boardwalks, just switchboard goes for a walk kind of thing. And when you're just staring at a computer, it's nice to just get out and go for a walk and
move.
We as our little team, different iterations of our team, are going and walking through that little neighborhood. We always are looking for all of those little poetry. You're talking about like the ones that are actually in the concrete.
Yes.
Yeah. Super fun.
I was on the arts board. I was a board member for Central Minnesota Arts Board for 9 years. And I was on the board when we approved the sidewalk poetry. And I remember how much I loved that project,
Yeah. Yeah. Super fun. And are you an artist? What do you do?
So I went to school for English literature because at the time I thought that I would be a writer.
Okay.
That's not ever actually happened, right? And so I'm an arts appreciator in a tremendous sense. So when you spend your life grant writing, you don't always want to come home and write creatively, right? And my professional career up to this time, I was the grant writer for all of the organizations that I worked for. And I also was the marketer. So I did a lot of writing at work. So I didn't do much writing not at work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. I understand that.
And so I think that there might be an iteration of my life that's now coming, that's changed.
Sure.
Right? I don't have the same output at work the way that, in terms of writing, the way that I used to. And I'm also not writing grants, right? Which consumed a lot of my time and a lot of my
creative energy,
honestly,
100%.
right? And I've noticed that a lot of arts administrators don't tend to be artists themselves, right?
They're more administrator than art,
and deeply appreciative, right? One of my past colleagues used to say, and she booked seasons, right? So she was the individual who decided what shows were coming, right? And she said that her art in the world was her season, right? And how it balanced the needs of the community and how it represented and reflected the needs of the community, right? So I think there's time, but right now I am not a practicing artist.
I was a music major in college, and yeah, like I had said, I sang in this boys' choir for the St. John's Boys' Choir for all my childhood, and then through high school I sang, and then in college I sang, and I wanted to be a college choral conductor, and then all of this other creative stuff, this agency stuff happened, and photography stuff happened, and I get asked all the time by people who knew me from kind of my past life, oh, like, where are you singing? Like, are you on stage anywhere? Are you doing anything? And I don't do anything. I sing loud at church is always it's always just what I tell people. And it's because I'm really thankful, but I get to expend my creative energy like fully, like when I show up at work and until I get home, I'm expending a lot of creative energy, and so I don't get home with the same kind of need of like, man, I feel like I got to be a part of something really neat and really, creative. And so I don't have the same kind of desire as I used to of just like, man, I gotta be a part of that because I'm just doing something that's differently creative now.
Yep.
Yeah.
And when I was early in my career, I worked at a very small nonprofit visual arts center. And one of our board members was a woman who was an empty nester, right? So I assume in her 50s, right? And she had just really taken off with her art career, right? And
In her 50s.
In her 50s.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to her and her telling me that there are phases, right? We don't have to do everything all at once. And that was so reassuring for me.
Yeah.
At that time, I had 2 small kids and, no bandwidth,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And for her to put it into perspective that, this is a window in your life, this isn't going to be your whole life. And at some point, you're going to have different options. And maybe that's when, and her arts career was fabulous, right? And she really took off in her 50s. She didn't really do much at all before.
Yeah.
So I think there's time.
For sure. I think there's something also really unique about really good art or really good artists and good art that is a response to to your surroundings. And I think to be able to do that thing well, you really need to be able to see well. You need to be able to listen well. And there is something, I think, as people age, there's like a kind of a wisdom that kind of comes with some of that. And so I think it's not a surprise to me that when you're in your 50s, that
Right.
you could really develop a really successful career, because all of these life lessons of like learning how to be a human and how to engage with others, that stuff takes time to do. Those are things that you can't really rush. And so the more of that you have, the more you actually probably have to put onto a canvas and put onto a page, as you age and mature. Yeah, that's cool.
It's funny. I drove up to Fargo last weekend to help my youngest start packing for a international move, actually. And on my way to Fargo, my family moved a lot when I was growing up, and I've always felt kind of rootless. But Fargo-Moorhead is one of the places we routinely kind of landed again, right? And my family is from, my grandma grew up in the Elbow Lake area. My dad is from the Battle Lake area. And so once I hit past Alexandria, there is this knowing in my body, this recognition of place, even though I didn't necessarily live in these places, right? And so on that trip, I was thinking about reclaiming these spaces with this like knowing in my body that I'm from these places, right? And if I were to do that artistically, what would that look like, right? And I've never had those kind of thoughts before, right?
Yeah.
Like this is home to me in a way that is hard to articulate, but my physical body knows it,
Interesting.
right?
Yeah.
So here I am at 52 with enough lived life experience to not think I was rootless,
Right.
right? And what does reclaiming my roots look like in an artistic sense? If I were to do that, how would I go about doing that?
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be fun to see. It'll be fun to see what comes with some of that artistic exploration. We recently had on the podcast Jerome Tupa, who is an artist out at St. John's, and I helped Jerome. Switchboard helped Jerome build a website and a logo, and kind of like get onto the internet. Kind of, he had been an artist for a really, really long time.
Right.
But when I met Jerome, he was, I think, either 79 or 80 when I met him, and but because of what we did, I got to photograph a huge chunk of his past catalog. And then now we've been kind of actively involved as he's continued to make. And the work that he's making right now in his early to mid 80s is my favorite, is my absolute favorite of all of the stuff that he's done. And I photographed so much of it. Like I kind of know and understand his kind of different periods and eras and the things. And the stuff that he's making right now with all of the perspective. And you can see, he showed me a piece at one point recently, and there were colors in that piece that I had never seen before.
Oh, wow.
And so I got to ask him, like, why? Like this pastel, this kind of salmon-y color, like, how did you get there? It's just like, there's something fun about seeing someone's artistic experience and how they have grown and the things that have influenced their work at different times. And then you see it as it continues to grow and evolve. There's something that's really, really fun about that. And that this stuff that he's doing in his 80s is by far my favorite stuff that he has done.
That's very cool. His work's beautiful. So, I haven't seen anything recent. So I'm fascinated now. Yeah.
We had a chance to go to Asia with him.
Oh, wow.
Japan, South Korea, and Thailand. And so much of it was kind of a pilgrimage story. And so much of it has these influences of being in Asia. So it's kind of fun. You should go check it out. Well, sweet. Leslie, thank you for coming and joining us on the podcast. As a recipient, I'm sure, over the years, some of the organizations and some of the groups that I was a part of, I'm sure were recipients of the funds that you guys helped administer on behalf of the state and others. Thank you for caring about the arts and investing in the arts. I love art in all of its facets, and I'm thankful that there are people that care about it and are continuing to try to work in our community to make that accessible to people. So
all of a sudden I thought, I've missed an opportunity to say something. So do you mind if I just make
anything,
one? Yep. Okay.
Anything.
So the Legacy Amendment had a 25-year lifespan.
Okay.
Right? And we passed it in 2008. So we're going to need to pass the Legacy Amendment again in another 8 or 9 years. I can't quite remember. And so it's really important for people to understand what the Legacy Amendment does for Minnesota, not just in the arts, right? I also spend a lot of time at state parks, and if you're looking for the Legacy logo, you see it everywhere, right? And so just having the knowledge that the Legacy Amendment is going to need to be renewed in front of people, so it's something that they're primed for and understand what the legacy does for them, I would be remiss not to make a little pitch.
Sure.
So thank you.
In 8 years, check out the Legacy Amendment. Well, sweet. Leslie, thank you so much for coming and joining us. And again, thanks for everything you do as an advocate for arts in our community.
Thank you so much. This has been very enjoyable.
Sweet.